our interview will be done by our songwriting faculty member, Jim McCormick, who many of you may know. Jim's written lots of great songs. He's written so many good songs that he drives a much nicer car than I do. So that's a good sign. But Jim's brought us a guest from Nashville. Joe Fisher spent about 10 years as a VP of A&R for Universal Records. He's currently got two businesses, an artist development business that he's running with Justin Timberlake, and a publishing business with Keith Urban, so he's not like really messing around with the small time stuff. Please welcome Joe Fisher and Jim McCormick.
Thank you, Jeff. You want the big couch?
I don't know.
You deserve it.
Hey, guys.
Y'all welcome my friend Joe Fisher, please. We're here quite organically. Can I tell a story of how we kind of decided to come on down? Joe and I have known each other about 15 or 20 years, and he has a daughter who's a freshman at a nearby university, and he was looking over the program here, and in doing so came across my name on the faculty, called me, said, we have breakfast the next day or so, and that was a mere few weeks ago, and Jeff made it happen. Jeff and Kate made it happen, so here we are. Thanks for coming down.
Absolutely.
Today. Can we kick off just with a little bit of your journey, your story, and kind of where you've been, how you got here?
So when I was a kid, I loved singer-songwriters, right? So I bought a bunch of records, and I was just obsessed with songwriters, like you. And I would buy the albums, look at the back, I wanted to know who all wrote the songs. I'm trying to make this very long story short, but I discovered a school called Belmont in Nashville, and this is way before y'all were born. And ended up going there and just found my way through, found internships. I put my record player together and pulled out some old records, and I called RCA Records, and the next thing I know, I said, hey, does anybody there need an intern? And they're like, anybody back there need an intern? And then I got an internship there, and then I kind of weaved my way through publishing, record label, and then I got a job in what back then was called a tape room, where I was physically recording tapes from reel-to-reels to tapes to take to artists in Nashville. And doing all that, I kind of discovered that there were songwriters that figured out that I was a good friend to them because I was getting their songs recorded by big artists in Nashville at the time. And that just became my passion, and I found my way through. The school gave me the opportunity to open the doors, but it was me that had to go find the internships and then sell myself, and then be able to get the jobs and grow that way. That's how I did it.
The first jobs were music publishing.
That's correct. Yeah.
What was the transition from music publishing to a record company, Universal?
Well, before I went to Universal, I started my own publishing company. It was actually tied to Universal. I did it with a record producer. By the way, I want to tell you, I don't write, I don't play, I don't sing. I'm on the business side creatively, but on the business side. And so I convinced this record producer at MCA Records to do a publishing company with me. And we started developing some writers, and then the DreamWorks and MCA kind of merged and became Universal Records. And the head there ended up calling me saying, hey, you have a lot of relationships, you're developing a lot of writers that at that time were turning into recording artists. And he said, I would love for you to come over. And I said, well, I've started this publishing company. I mean, this is my passion. I don't really want to go work at a record label. And he said, you can keep your publishing company, I'll make it worth your while. And that's what I did. Yeah.
Great. So you make your way through A&R, record label world. I'm going to try and fast track us up to where we are here. Okay. You're there for 10 years at Universal Records. And then tell me about the transition from that to what is a more entrepreneurial sort of place now.
So Keith Urban and I had been friends before he got a record deal. I was like one of the first people he met when he moved from Australia. And I went down to this little bar to see him play, and I went back to the people I was working for, and I just said, look, I don't know if this guy's country. I don't know what he is, but he's a star. He's like got it. And they ended up signing him. And so he and I just forged this friendship from in the early 90s. And when I was at the label, he and I decided to sign some writers together. And I signed this kid named Jimmy Robbins, who was this 23-year-old kid from North Carolina building tracks. Everybody in Nashville passed on him because he was a little progressive, and the track thing wasn't really the thing at the time. It is now, but it wasn't at the time. And then he came out of the gate and had, I don't know, we had some like 5 number ones in a matter of a year. And then he, by the way, he has a current number one this week with a song called "The Bones" by Maren Morris, so which is cool.
Nice.
So, but to answer your question, so along that, while I was doing that, I was traveling with some of these country guys, and a friend of a friend introduced me to Timberlake, and he said, "Man, I really want to do something in Nashville. I want to start an artist development company, but I don't really have anybody to do it with. I love what's going on in Nashville. Can we make that happen?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, you're Timberlake. I'm in. Let's go." So I had this writer that was doing really well. I had a few writers that were doing really well, and then I just got to the point where doing the A&R thing at the label was, while it was an awesome gig, I mean, a blast. Do it if you can, but also I always had a little side action so I could get out, and do my own thing. So started the publishing company and then the artist development company.
The side hustle.
Side hustle.
Became more interesting. Okay, so from what I hear, we have a record company, an artist development kind of effort between you and Justin Timberlake, a music publishing company between you and Keith, and you as an entrepreneur, as a business person. And so what I'd like to do is kind of break it into 3 sections, the questions. What advice would you offer those here, the young artists here, who might want to get the attention of a record label or a development producer or management? What, from your perspective, can you say to these students who are still in a program as they prepare to enter the real world and come out?
I'll start with the artist side, right? Have you all heard that song Roxanne that's out now by Arizona Zervas? All right, so I accidentally published that song. I signed this girl who was actually interning for me, and she was trying to be a song. She didn't know she wanted to be a songwriter, but she was writing these hooks, and I thought, well, man, I think they're pretty good. I'm a country guy, but I think I've got connections in LA. So I connected her. I did a co-publishing venture with a company called Prescription in LA, and she went out there, and literally in October she called me and said, "Hey, have you heard the song Roxanne?" And I said, "By the Police?" And she goes, "No, it's a new one." And she said, "It's blowing up on TikTok." I'm like, I have no clue what you're talking about. And so, lo and behold, I think it's at 500 million streams right now. And it's top 5 on top 40 and blowing up on urban charts. But it's funny how artists now, they can, and by the way, Arizona did not have a record deal until about a week ago. Every label in the world was offering them a lot of money to sign up because they knew that song was blowing up. It was a global viral hit. And so my point is that, labels are paying attention. And if you're an artist, I would continue to put music out. Find way, and it was cool to watch all these artists get up and say they're playing, you got music coming out. I think that's fantastic. Put music out. And try to find playlisters if you can. I know with the DSPs and Spotify, Apple, Amazon, they're really hard to find. They try to be invisible, honestly, and that's where record labels and guys we're able to track these people down so we can get songs pushed on big playlists, because then labels are paying attention to the analytics, right? So they're looking at the data. You can see how many songs are being skipped, or how many times it's being skipped, how many times it's being saved. It's real live stuff, and they know exactly what regions it's being played in. They've got all the labels. Every one of the labels has some researcher looking at data. That's all they do. And so I had a head of a record label up in New York who's got massive pop hits tell me, we don't I don't listen with my ears anymore. I listen with my eyes, and they want to see the numbers. So I would encourage you to continue to push music out. Be honest with yourself. Make sure it's good, and make sure that more people than just your friends and family like it. And then, I mean, look, the Chainsmokers had a bunch of songs that didn't work, and they actually got dropped from their first label. And then they put out that massive hit, and they got picked up and put out that big hit, and the rest is history. But I mean, there's going to be bumps in the road, but I just think if you know who you are and you can figure out your lane musically, you just got to go for it. You just got to keep pushing music out, and then try to find, try to find this playlist if you can.
That's the data and analytics. Is the live component still?
Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, and live is great. I mean, go build an audience. Nothing better than having a built-in fan base. When I go to Bonnaroo, I don't know any of these. I mean, I know half of the bands, but these other guys are out there. They got massive followings, and they're having incredible careers. So you don't always have to rely on radio. If you're a touring artist, I mean, you're doing great. You don't necessarily need a record deal. I mean, if somebody's going to sign you and give you a huge advance and promote your music, then, not many people other than Chance the Rapper say no to that, So.
I'm going to go through, let's look at music publishing for those who want to be songwriters or pure songwriters. As a music publisher, I think the answer is pretty simple, but can you speak to those who want to be writers?
Sure. Writing is interesting, a lot of writers in here. Raise your, wow, I love it. Writing is one of those things where it's hard to get a publishing deal if you're not in Nashville, in LA, in New York, in London, wherever, one of the major hubs, unless you're writing with an artist or are the artist that's blowing up. Now, a lot of times, like you, Jim, writing with the artist that's a great life. That's a great lifestyle to be a songwriter. Some of my, my closest friends are writers, and they're doing incredibly well. But there's BMI, there's ASCAP, there's CSAC. Those are called performing rights organizations. I don't know if y'all learn about that here, but be familiar with those. Affiliate yourself with those. One of those. As a writer, you can only be with one. But and then if you want to be in Nashville, if you want to be in LA or want to be in New York, depending on your musical style, you need to find somebody, a champion at BMI, ASCAP, or CSAC, because they can help you maybe navigate the waters of trying to find a publishing deal, if that's what you want to do, and at the end of the day, a publishing deal is great because, you get a little bit of money, somebody pays for your demos, and you can get songs pitched to artists, and you can get plugged into different producers, and next thing you know, you might have some, like this girl has this Roxanne song, and so I don't know if that fully answered the question, but I'm sure we'll have some.
We will. And then the third category, there are some here who don't want to be writers, don't want to be artists. They're interested in working in management, publishing, record companies. What can you say to them from where they are looking ahead? How can they set themselves up for entry into that business? Yeah,
that one is a no-brainer where you have, unless you are wicked, forward-thinking, like you got an art, like the kid that manages Arizona Zervis, which I know, and he's a good kid. He lives in LA, but that dude sleeps all day, parties all night, and then they stumbled into Arizona and they put this record out, and it's just massive, and that's cool. It takes all kinds, but otherwise, you need to be in Nashville, in LA, in New York, and intern. Find those people that you can collaborate with, that you can show that, hey, I'm here. I'm going to show up every day. That's what I did. I showed up every day. I listened. I rarely talked. I would occasionally bring, like, hey, I saw this songwriter at a writer round that I think they're really good, or an artist that's somewhere else that I think is really good. You should check them out. And you just have to be in the circle and be a cool hang, But you do have to intern, honestly, because there's just it's so hard to break through and just get a job, get hired right out of college, unless you are, like I said, unless you've got an artist you're already attached to that you're managing. Unless you just have a different skill set that a lot of us don't already have. It took me a long time. I mean, obviously I got there and just kind of found my way and weaved it through, but I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't have a plan B. I didn't, like you artists, man, I would say don't have a plan B either. You know, if you really believe that's what you're going to do, then freaking do it.
They're looking for interns from outside of Nashville, in Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are. I mean, you're competing with, obviously, Belmont. You're competing with MTSU. You're competing with, because you're not there during the year, so you have to go try to find either a summer internship or a semester away, I guess. But I think they're out there. Mm-hmm. I think they're there, for sure.
And how about the non-country genre in Nashville? I'm focusing on Nashville because of its proximity.
Sure.
Is there a growing scene outside of country?
There's a growing, not on the business side, but there is a growing scene on the artist side. I mean, there's a lot of, Kings of Leon live there, but there's a definitely doesn't have to be country centric. You can like, look, I got a kid that I signed. He was working at Nordstrom, and we didn't talk music. I bought a shirt. And I know you guys probably don't shop at Nordstrom, but my wife made me go there, so I bought a shirt. And when and this kid was, we didn't talk music, and I saw him 3 days later at a writer round, and I started talking to him. I said, "What are you doing, man?" And he said, I'm from Chicago. I'm a singer-songwriter. I love Chris Brown. I don't do country, but it was just easier to get to Nashville from Chicago. And I said, well, play me some music. And so he played me some songs, and I ended up signing him to a publishing deal. And he just got signed to Warner Brothers Records, and his name's Connor Matthews, and he just put out a song that's on New Music Friday, which is a massive playlist on Spotify, which is really hard to get. But, he's on there, and Warner Brothers is trying to blow him up now. So, and that all happened out in Nashville.
Should we do some questions?
Then you go to writer rounds. Go to a lot of writer rounds. And I didn't say this earlier. I think it's really important to learn to co-write. If you look at records now, very few people write their own songs by themselves. It's unfortunate. It used to be like that, but now it's collaborators with producers, and there's producers that aren't really writers, but they get writer credit. They get publishing credit, which is important. But the more you can write with other people, the better, and then try to find your peers that you're growing to. I think the sooner you move there, the better, and then go out and meet like-minded people, and then go affiliate with ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC, and put a little catalog together, put a little reel together, and they don't have to be demoed. Don't spend. I try to tell people, don't spend a lot of money to demo songs, because they're usually not very good unless you're doing it with a producer who's a really good creative track person or whatever, and you can get in there and define your sound. But I think once you're there, you'll be surprised. It's a pretty small community, and it's not really hard to navigate your way once you kind of be there for a little bit, or there for a little bit.
What were the first steps in pursuing the artist development company?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, I was at the record label, and I had been there for a long enough time, and when I was signing artists, it was so dependent on if their music was released. It was so dependent on, does the president of the record label like it? Does the promotion team like it? Does the intern like it? And it just kind of got old to me, that I was like signing these kids that had this really raw talent, but it was taking 2 years to release music. So when I had the opportunity to leave the label, I thought, okay, I want to figure out how to be artist friendly, whatever that means. But that means that, to me, it means I want to help artists figure out who they are, and then push music out quicker than, because with the advent of streaming, like I said, we might as well keep pushing music out. And so it wasn't a hard choice. Obviously it was a gamble, because what I didn't say is fortunately I ended up turning the artist development company into what's called a joint venture with Sony Records. So it's easy now because easier because I'm able to sign writers or artists and push music up and get it going. And then if it really raises its hand and says I think I'm a hit, then the promotion team from Sony Records will look at it and go, all right, we're gonna push you out and we're gonna take you to terrestrial radio and try to make it a hit. But to leave, for me, it was pretty easy because I've done it for so long, and I feel like there's so much talent. There's so many really good artists out here that we can do it. You know.
I was wondering, you mentioned the three major cities were New York, LA, and Nashville. Depending on the genre, which genres for which city exactly were you meaning?
Country for Nashville for sure, and a lot of pop music is breaking out of there, and then LA for almost everything else. New York is a lot smaller even than Nashville right now. I think there's pop music coming out of there, and there's a lot of major labels, but a lot of them are moving to LA. So really more, pop, urban, R&B. Well, even urban's out of New York, but a lot of most everything else out of LA.
What do you do to develop artists and songwriters?
So when I sign a writer, they're usually pretty green. I don't think I've ever signed anybody that's had a publishing deal before. And that's kind of like, just was my thing. It's like, okay, I'm going to try to find, I told Jim about this, or I told somebody else about this kid that I met from Kentucky who was going to be a dairy farmer. And he said, I'm going to play a couple songs, and he did. And I said, wow, if you can write songs, back to what I told you, if you can write songs by yourself, in that I like them, then I think, okay, we're on the right track. I can now you collaborate with some other people. So what I do as a publisher, I connect them with other songwriters, other artists, producers, and then I pay for demos. I try to give them the tools to, depending on what they are trying to do, whether it's an artist or a writer, I try to give them the tools and put them in a really good position, which is what, most of us publishers and A&R guys do. We don't have any reason not to. They vary. I mean, the publishing deals can vary. That's a rabbit hole we might not want to go down, but it depends on how much leverage do you have? How many offers do you have? Is there multiple publishers coming after you? How bad do you want to be with this guy? Is it a co-pub deal? And that's a whole different class probably, but they can, unless you're Arizona Zervis, it's not going to be a huge number, but it's going to be an opportunity.
Thank you. Is it, for an artist in the kind of early stages, is it better to release as many first drafts and demos out there on music streaming platforms just to have your content out there and develop a ground basis of fans, or is it better to spend a lot of time and empty out the wallet a little bit to have the best quality of those songs first? Like, what makes I don't know if there's a difference of impression there.
I know what you mean. Quality is not don't worry about quality. But when you say first draft, make sure it's good, and make sure it's good music. I know you got to kind of go out there and get the hiccups out and get out of the way, but I don't think you need to have like A-list producer quality, to put out. That's not what we're looking for. I'm as a publisher, as a publisher, I'm looking at, okay, are the songs there? Does this guy write songs well? As the label side of me says, is he unique? Is he saying something different? Is his voice? It's not a talent contest in Nashville. It's more about a personality thing, and you have something to offer, right? So I wouldn't worry about quality first, unless you're, I think unless you're doing the EDM thing. I think that's what is the difference.
Hi. Oh, sorry, I got the mic over
you got
here.
one? Oh,
I got one.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Sorry, we'll come back.
All right. My question was, where do you look exactly to find these new artists as an A&R?
Good question too. I get a lot of people from a lot of attorneys, a lot of managers, a lot of, like I said, the performing rights organizations, the BMIs, the ASCAPs, they call and say, hey, you should check this person out. And then, you know, I have people that work for me that can scour and look, and we kind of, you know, see how people are, you know. But they come to me all different ways, and I like to, you know, in Nashville is a little bit different because when they can come into my office, they'll play, you know, with a guitar and they'll sing a song and we'll hang out, which is cool, you know.
Okay.
Hello, sorry, my voice is kind of gone. I'm Jana. So asking a question as an aspiring A&R, how do you differentiate yourself when you're applying to jobs and things like that, but when you don't have the same resources as record labels do? Like if you want to help artists and you're finding new people, but you don't have the same resources that a record label could apply to them, how can you still differentiate yourself as an A&R?
So are you asking how to be like an independent A&R?
Sure.
Okay. That I don't think it changes a whole lot. I mean, I think that's almost being a manager, right? Where if you find an artist that you want to develop and that you believe in and you want to work with, then I think the A&R at a label, we have the resources, not financially, you know, we have a promotion team, we have a marketing team, we can shoot a video, we can do photo shoot, we can do all the above. But when you're indie, it's really becomes, okay, how can you do this on a shoestring budget, right? And those are the best artists, you know, that can do it on nothing, that have no money. And I mean, I'm blown away by how many artists figure that part of it out, and they're able to tour without a booking agent. They have somebody that's hustling for them and putting them in clubs, and they're building a fan base. But it's all that incremental, you know, you have to see the growth of that artist. So I wouldn't say that you're not handicapped by not having a major. I just think you're even more of an entrepreneur if you can do it without the major.
So do you think labels are looking more for people that are bringing something new to the table that like you wouldn't typically hear, or they're looking to sign someone who they know can make hits and make stuff that's commercially popular? Like, would you say it's more important as an artist to try to innovate or try to like make something more mainstream appealing if you want to appeal to labels?
Yeah, as an artist?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Nashville's a little bit different because if you listen to country radio, it's a lot of the same stuff. You know, it's pretty cookie cutter, you know, assembly line stuff. But that's where differentiating yourself as a pop or R&B urban artist is important, I think. I mean, look, there's, you know, I mean, if you can do it like everybody else, that's cool. You can probably have a little bit of success, but how do you become authentic and organically you, right? And I think labels will discover that, and fans discover that. I mean, when you do something different, then, you know, people are going to come, and your streaming number, that's what, I hate it. I hate the fact that guy said he listens with his eyes and not his ears, because that's terrible. I mean, because, you know, I want to hear great music. I want to hear new music. I want to hear fresh music. But you put it out there, and if a lot of people like it, you only need a little bit of people to like it. Really, if everybody's that's on Spotify, you know, you get 1% of those people. That's a pretty big audience.
So I have two questions. One, how's the rock scene in Nashville? And then the second question would be maybe if you could give a characteristic trait of each of the artists you work with that maybe defines them as great, or maybe that separates them from anybody else who couldn't quite make the cut.
Rock scene in Nashville is actually coming on. It's starting to come on. It's there's a couple of cool bands. There's a band called Bishop Gun out of Natchez, Mississippi. They're making some noise. I think they opened up for the Rolling Stones. But it's a pretty cool scene there. It's still such a small format, and unfortunately, because I would love for it to be like it was in the 80s, but it's just, are you a rocker? A rock band? What's the name of your band? Zeta. Cool. Yeah, but it's coming. I mean, with that, what's that band that sounds like Led Zeppelin? Yeah, Greta Van Fleet. Yeah, they're coming on. Yeah, they're huge. Anyway, what was the second question? What differentiates? Yeah, I mean, that's a gut thing for me. One of the guys that I have is from another guy from Kentucky who is, I mean, really, really country with this crazy cool voice. Wears a cowboy hat. I mean, but he doesn't sound like Luke Bryan. He's actually trying to keep him out of the middle. My whole thing was like, I hate the middle. The middle is where people get lost. And I know it's an easy way to make money, but it's where people get lost. So I like a little bit out of the middle. And then, like I said before, I work with, I don't know if anybody here know Chris Stapleton, familiar? So I've known Stapleton since 2000 for 20 years. And I connected him and Timberlake, and we did that thing on the CMA Awards. And I told Justin, he called me, he said, man, why isn't Chris a superstar? And I said, because he doesn't check the boxes. He's not a pretty boy. He doesn't have mainstream hits. I said, it's going to take a TV moment for a guy like this. And there we had the TV moment, and it blew him up, So those are the things. I mean, you can't plan that, you can't plan it at all. But when I sign people, I definitely want them to have a uniqueness about them that is going to, it may be hard, but that's fine. I'd rather have hard than, and I'd rather have a song go to number 20 on the charts and sell, and have 100 million streams than go number 1 and have 10 million streams.
Hey, I'm DJ. Thank you again for coming out here. So I have a little bit of a weird kind of offhanded question. So I've got a little bit of a wager going on with a guy named Scott Rogers. So by 2025, one of my ideal goals is to be able to perform in Dollywood. And so like him and I have been going back and forth, and I was like, yo, like I promise you, just through like genuine interactions and just meeting random people, that I will somehow find breadcrumbs to get the Dolly part and to be able to perform there. So my question is for you, being from Nashville, do you have any connections, whether it be anybody that she's associated with, et cetera, et cetera?
Done. Let's do it. You're gonna win. We're gonna win that bet.
I gotta beat Scott. Like there's no way. I can't lose this.
I mean, it's not over for like a pizza, is it? What's the wager? Can you tell us?
The wager is actually like $600, but the thing is, Scott and I both know I don't have $600 to give out. He most definitely does.
You said by 2025?
By 2025.
What do you do?
So I'm an artist, producer, and engineer. My genre is primarily hip hop, but I was a classical violin player for a long time. So like I have a very eclectic sense of music, and I'm from South Carolina. So like the Writers Round is something that I've been like a part of for a very long time. So like
let's put out a hip hop single with a fiddle or a violin player, right? And
that would be dope.
All we gotta do is do a few thousand streams, and you'll have the $600, and by then you're gonna be at Dolly World.
There we are. But yeah, that is the goal, is to get to Dollywood and see my baby Dolly.
That is funny. That is awesome. We can make that happen.
Cool.
We'll have to get your info, though. We'll have to.
That'll work.
Hi. So I just wanted to ask, how do you go about pushing people? Not pushing. That sounds wrong. But like incentivizing artists to go ahead and like record music when you know like they have it, and just like really putting it out there, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
How do I convince them to push music or to put music out?
Yeah, so like from a very independent level, like if you see that someone has the talent, how do you go about really like giving them that confidence and incentive to go ahead and record some music and like do some live shows, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I don't think it's that hard. If they're talking to me, then they want it. They're ready to go. It's a matter of if, and a lot of people just don't know how to do it. The general, like, how do you push music out? How do you get a distribution company? Somebody said that they're doing DistroKid, I think. I use TuneCore when I put something out. Before I take it to the label, I use TuneCore just because it's easier to move around, and it's really easy to navigate. But I just it's really not hard. I mean, you just got to. But the other key is like doing producer agreements. I don't know if a lot of you guys are familiar with that, but if you're making music, or whoever's making music and has a producer, you got to make sure you can pay the producer. You got to pay the writers. You got to, there's some legalities to it that a lot of. I mean, I'm sure there's more that are on the streaming services that aren't probably buttoned up than there are, but it's important. Make sure you do have that buttoned up.
Well, we'll wrap it up. Joe Fisher, I really appreciate you coming down to Loyola and hanging out with us, man.
It was fun. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.